and go. Hey, this is Romy here from Geek Podcast. Today we had a wonderful interview with the Wolfin, author of the End Online series and Chronicles of the Eternals. Now you can catch all this stuff on Amazon or at endonline.com, WordPress.com. We'll have full links to all his stuff in the show notes. Any place you can find him, we're going to give you a link for it, folks. I just want to give you a quick heads up that during the interview we did lose connection a couple of times, so there might be some slight pauses between his answers and my questions, and you might notice a few places where it seems like Scott, I did my best to try to eliminate the places where we lost connection, but I just want to give you a heads up. Other than that, though, go enjoy this interview and, of course, go geek out about something. I'm Ramon Mejia from Geek Podcast. Today we have a wonderful special guest with us, D. Wolfin, author of the End Online series and the Chronicles of the Eternal. Hey, how's it going, man?
I'm going pretty good, thanks. Yourself?
Absolutely. Now it's a little early in the morning for you there in Australia.
Yes.
So you must be a morning or late night person.
I'm a bit of both. I do this full time, so naturally, whenever I'm up, I'm writing. So whether it's now or we have the 7 o'clock news in the morning, or whether it's late at night, just whenever I get the chance.
Absolutely. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me and listening to your fans' questions and everything. So we'll hit right off. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your background?
Well, I'm D. Wolfin. I live in Australia, Melbourne, the capital of the food, as we like to call it. I've been doing this writing since November 2014. That's a little over a year and a half ago. So I've been into this for quite some time. I've seen a lot of people come up during the process, some fantastic works that have come. There's not a great deal else for me to talk about myself. It's just occasionally things come up, and when you have to come up with a speech as to everything that's happened, it's quite long.
I can understand, but you've only been writing professionally for, you said, a year and a half.
A year and a half, yes.
That is absolutely amazing. Yeah, you had six successful books. You had 5 in the End Online series, and then now you've entered a new series, Chronicles of the Eternal. That's absolutely amazing. That's only been a year and a half. You published a lot of books.
Yeah, it takes some time, but at the end of the day, once you get it done, it's satisfaction that comes from it, and you just keep working hard at it, just to keep having that feeling.
Absolutely. Now, do you have any particular ambitions for your writing career in particular?
What do you mean?
Any goals? Is there any kind of milestones you want to reach as an author, whether it's being best published or any particular awards or just being prolific?
I think everyone wants to be the most popular when you get into this game. There's also, I want to get at least one series finished, to have a full series done, whether it's End Online, which is, I believe it's going to be 12 books, or Chronicles of the Eternal, which I still haven't determined. Just to get one book series finished, I think that's going to be a milestone for me.
That 12 books for a single series, that's pretty good. That's entering to like George R. R. Martin territory or Robert Jordan.
Oh, well, when it comes down to the length of books, I'm working an uphill battle.
Absolutely. Now, are there any particular, speaking of authors, do you have any particular authors that inspire you?
If we're going to authors inspired me, I have read a lot of just pure fiction books that I've read. I remember Magician by Raymond E. Fiest. I actually have that one sitting on my bookshelf. I've read back through it about 7 times.
Yeah, great novel.
And another one of my all-time favorites from when I was younger was Cecilia Dart Thornton. All I remember was the first book was called The Ill-Made Mute, and that was one of the best series I've ever read, simply because of the ending. When it comes down to the books, they can be great, but to me, it's always the ending that makes the book.
Okay, I can understand that. Execution as well as the journey make for a good novel or story.
The journey's good, but at the end of the book, is it a really good book? Does it come off on that high note, or does it just leave things off to could it continue on in the future?
Sometimes a vague ending can kind of ruin all the great stuff that comes before it. I hear you. Now let's talk a little about the things that you've actually personally written. Tell me about the things that you've written so far.
Well, the things that I've written, are we just talking about my books?
Yeah, just your
And
books
online
and other
Chronicles of
things
the
in
Eternal? Yeah.
general, whatever you want to talk about.
Well, End Online and Chronicles of the Eternal are pretty much all that I have written so far in my current life. Other than that, there was one story I wrote when I was young. It was a child in primary school. We had our class assessment where we had to write a short story. I think they gave us 1,000 to 2,000 words. Back then, that just blew my mind, 1,000 to 2,000 words. And I thought, I can't just go with a small book. So I got my A5 notebook out and I wrote 30 pages of chapter 1 of my ideal book. It was pure fantasy, and I can assume that it was probably quite horrible, given that I was 9, 10 years old. But I think that was probably the start of the journey. Then I got back into it with End Online. I decided to put a pen down on paper again and start writing.
Now, what made you pick up the pen again and to start writing?
I was in a phase of reading a lot of other works. I scoured the internet, this new lit RPG genre. That's what got me into it, which is what I write. When I was reading it, there wasn't much available at that time. That was back when Legendary Moonlight Sculptor, one of the biggest lit RPGs that are around that was translated on the internet, that was still being translated. That's how old it was. The first 20 volumes, which the author gave his permission to translate.
Right.
So after that, there wasn't that much, and I actually ran out of stuff to read, and I thought, you know what? Why don't I just start writing my own?
I feel like that's a very common theme for a lot of lit RPG writers. Elron Kong made the same kind of comment. He was like, I was reading this stuff and I thought, well, I can do this. I can do something better than this. And he just wrote and he published. And it sounds like it's the same kind of thing for you and a lot of other authors where they're enthusiastic about lit RPG story and they feel such a connection that it kind of inspires their imagination to put pen to paper and to write their own stories.
I think that's completely true. I started writing my book on the game that I would like to play, and I believe most other authors are in the same book that is in. It's the game that they would like to play, that they think is ideal.
Now, was there a particular game that you've based the rules for End Online from?
There isn't really. It's just been a collaboration of all the RPG games I've played throughout my life and all the books I've read, and it just kind of came together and created something new.
Yeah, I hear it. A lot of times you play video games, you play tabletop games, whatever the case, you get a feel for the mechanics that work for you and might work for like a novelization series. That's one of the things I really love about lit RPG myself is that the rules of the world are understandable. You do skills, whatever it is, it makes sense to you more than just, the vague magic descriptions of some traditional fantasy.
Yes, I completely understand that.
Absolutely. Now let's talk a little bit about the characters in your stories. In Online, your main character is lost, not lost,
Yes.
not can't find anywhere, but his main character's name is
He's
Lost.
yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that main character and what makes him special?
Well, when I first started him, the first chapter, I tried to have a bit of an emotional chapter. This is trying into the serious aspect of gaming. As in, my life has fallen apart,
right?
And perhaps this could be an escape. The actual name Lost came as a small, I can't think of the word for it. I'm an author and I can't think of the word. Just a small play on words, which was to do with he lost a fight with the certain person, the elderly temple guide, the introduction. What's that? I can't think of the word for it. I just keep losing it. That's right. Anyway, yeah, it was just a little play on words, Lost, and that's I found to be easily rememberable, and well, a lot of people can. Yeah.
The play on word things, it's funny throughout the series because it keeps coming up as being, "Are you lost?" No, I'm lost, and yeah, it works very well as a kind of as a joke as well as a play on words and a metaphoric description of like the character's state of mind, not knowing where he wants to go, especially with his sisters, him being the breadwinner. but not really having a path in the real world, but kind of finding it within End Online and making goals and having plans and having adventures. So I think that's kind of what you mean.
Yeah, that's mostly along the same lines.
Okay, perfect. Now, what about now in your second series, your main character is Regal. Now, Regal's a very different character, I think, in some ways than Lost, and very similar in other ways. Can you tell us about a little bit about Regal and why that character is different?
Regal was completely different from Lost, as in Lost was someone who lost everything, whereas Regal was someone who didn't have it to begin with but gained it afterwards. So whereas Lost is about regaining what he's lost, Regal is more about making what am I trying to think of it, making the most out of what you have and what you've been given.
Okay.
So he got what I referred to as a soul, or that was how I referred to it in the book. But his emotions suddenly, start growing. His thoughts, he can predict the future better, like actions. He doesn't see someone running left and simply assume they're going to continue to run left. He thinks, looking at their subtle reactions, this person could run right. He could do a feint here. And yeah, he was to grow up there. His plan is to be a leader, someone who is firm and decisive, yet at the same time can actually feel the emotions of others.
I hear you. I did like the fact that you gave him a soul, and it was really a small technical difference in the real world between the soulless and those with souls. I found that to be a very fascinating backstory of the way the world had changed in Chronicles of the Eternal. I loved a lot of the systems you have in Chronicles of the Eternal. I think that there's a very definite point where he becomes like everybody else almost, and from there on you can see his progression. And I also love the fact that you didn't overpower Regal with any particular thing. Yes, he can see the future, but it's a few seconds, so he's not OP or anything. So I really love that personally.
Yeah, Regal, my plan with him is to, rather than make him the character that stands at the forefront, he's the person that stands behind everyone else and supports them.
Yeah, and through that, he becomes a more powerful character from the assistance and supporting other people. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Now, you write in the genre of lit RPG. Now, can you tell me what drew you to that particular genre?
It was more what I was reading at the time. There were a lot of translated novels. A lot of those novels now are for sale, which is great. I've purchased a couple just to support it, even if I haven't had time to read them.
Yeah.
I was reading the book, and with my love of video games and the genre of games which is still climbing today, I've just been enthralled with the actual subject itself. And with my knowledge that I have, I found that it was a lot easier to write that than some vague, pure fantasy book, which I will do in the future. But for now, this is what I like.
I hear you. What's that writing advice? Write about what you know. And I think for a lot of video game lovers, this kind of fits for them.
And that's exactly it.
Absolutely. Now, why? I guess this is kind of a little more vague question, but why do you write? I think a lot of authors have some kind of drive, but what drives you to write?
I enjoy when I finish a chapter or a book. As I publish my chapters online, as soon as I finish a chapter and I get that published, I just have this satisfaction, this pride in something that I have created and given to everyone else. And it's just incomparable with anything else. It's almost like a drug. You have it once and you just got to keep writing.
I hear you. It's that creative process of taking something from your brain, putting it on paper, and it's finalized and it's there and people read it and love it. There's some kind of addictor quality of like, oh, this feels good to be creative and to have somebody appreciate it and to buy your work. I absolutely agree I think that's a great motivation.
Yeah, there is no greater satisfaction than creating something out of nothing. That is how it is to me.
Absolutely. Now, going back a little bit to your game worlds, between End Online and Chronicles of the Eternal, their rule systems and their magic systems seem quite a bit different. How did you write them differently? Did you develop different rule systems? What caused you to make them the way that they are?
Well, End Online was my rough original idea of the game system, and that's the one we all know the best.
Right.
With Chronicles of the Eternal, when I started making that, to me, that's an improvement of the End Online system, which is I just took it down to the base level and I designed it new the same way a lot of game companies will do with their sequels.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, because I'd already learnt the End Online game system, I thought I would just stick to what I know and just improve the parts that I believe can be better.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. I think the role system that you set up in the very first book of Chronicles of the Eternal it feels more defined. It feels like you define your skill systems differing from your fighting skill system, from your magic skill systems, from your crafting skill systems, and you expanded upon how your magic system was unique, and how they can expand and what the restrictions are. And I think to me that sets up a very good foundation for a world. Once you've established your rules, everybody understands how things work, so you don't have to explain it again every single book. It's just, oh, this is how it works, and your small differentiation, the fact that there is such a system in place, to me, makes it feel a little more real. But that's my view.
Well, yeah, that's it. As long as you can get that system in place in the first place, you
Oh no, looks like we might have lost Mr. D. Wolfin for a second here. We are absolutely going to try to get him back through the broadcast. We'll give him a few minutes to come back on his own. Click on the link and see if we can catch him up. We'll see if he drops back in a minute. Otherwise, we might have to. Oh, looks like here he comes back. Hey, there you are.
There you are. Sorry, I lost connection with you.
No. So we've had a really smooth interview up to this point, so I'm really glad that if this is the only hiccup, it's been great so far.
I noticed the video and the audio was falling a little out. I sort of should have taken that as a sign.
It happens sometimes. But moving on to some other questions within the interview. See, we'll talk a little bit about your writing process. What's your process for writing? Do you have a particular time that you sit down and write? You said you're a full-time writer. Is that a recent development for you?
I've been a full-time writer for the past several months, 3 or 4 months, I believe it was. Actually, no, it's been longer than that. I moved into this current house where I am, which is 6 months ago, which is roughly the same time as I started doing it full-time.
Mm-hmm.
So about 6 months full-time writer. I don't have a particular time. It's just whenever I get the chance. But I do have a system, if that comes under the same category.
Yep.
What I do when I first go to write a chapter, I have a notebook, which I have one here.
Oh, so you do physical writing first?
Kind of. That's a
for a minute. Going back to how you develop your stories, planning all that, I think you were on your outline, your physical outline.
Yeah, the physical outline as to how I design and write each chapter. I'll get my notebook, which I'll write down notes on that chapter. I don't write it line for line, paragraph for paragraph. Instead, I'll just write down the brief outline of what's going to happen on that chapter, key points. And then once I've done that, that's when I'll start writing. When I write, however, I do actually tend to veer off my plan because the plan is just the first draft. When I write, that's similar to me rewriting it once. So the plan is the initial chapter, and then when I write it, that's kind of my improved chapter.
Okay, perfect. So do you think if you're writing, you said it as in conforming to the original outline, so you do more of a stream of thought writing process as you're writing?
It is very...
No. Oh, man. Not again. Please. Okay, so he's gone for right now for a minute, folks. We lost Mr. Wolfin again. It seems like we're having a bad connection. It's Australia and the United States, so it's not surprising. Hey,
whereabouts did you lose me?
No. I think you're at it's very much a stream of thought process, maybe, and then it cut
Yeah,
out.
that was probably halfway through.
Sorry.
That's right. Where do you want me to start from?
Oh, just wherever. I mean, you said this is a kind of it's an outline, but at the same time, it's also you don't necessarily have to stick to that outline. It's a stream of thought process that develops as you're writing, and I think that's great. I mean, whatever process you take, I think each author kind of has their own process to create their stuff, and even between different types of works, you can have different ways of writing. Like for me personally, I feel like Chronicles of the Eternal felt like a different process than it was from End Online. Was that the case?
Not really. It was the only main difference was the chapter length. Really, I had with End Online was two or three ideas per one massive chapter, whereas Chronicle of Eternal it was kind of one idea per small chapter, and that was the only real difference in the planning of it.
Difference. Again, how long does it take you to write a chapter or a book?
Yeah. It depends on the day, really. I work on words I write per day, chapter length. And online, the average chapter is about 8,000 words, whereas Chronicles of Eternal, it's about 4,000 words. If I allow one day for planning, I then go to write. It takes one day. I tend to write anywhere between 1,000 and 4,000 words. So 2,000 words is
Yep, all good. We're still here. That's a really good pace of like 2,000 words a day on average. I think you said.
That's what I aim at. 2,000 words a day.
So do you ever get a like writer's block when you write?
Not really. Occasionally, I feel like I actually run out of things to say.
That's good. I'm happy that you don't get writer's block. For me, when I write some fictional stories, amateurish, of course, sometimes I'll just come to the end of a story in my brain and I can't think of anything else for my characters to do. So sometimes I need personally to refill my creative juices through other mediums, whether it's reading other books or watching television or other things to kind of get those creative juices flowing. Is that the case for you at all?
I'm a very impulsive person, so quite often I will actually, go read some other works or, watch something on TV just to refresh my mind. But it's more of an impulse thing. It's not that I need to do it, but I have the want to do it.
Well, as a full-time writer, at least you have that dedication to say, okay, I'll go do something else for a little bit, but I know I'm always going to come back to this because this is the thing that I'm passionate about, and this is the thing that I'm doing. Let me ask, do you feel like writing a series is different than just a standalone book?
It is considerably. A standalone book, you have your start and your finish, and whether it's a single book or a trilogy, it's actually a lot easier. With a series, you need to try and focus on its start and finish for each individual book, and you can't have too much in the book, otherwise everyone expects it or they feel like it's been cut short. And if you've had too little, then again, it's going to feel like it's been cut short.
Okay, so it's more of a matter of scope, like whether you tell this particular story or as a series, you get a much broader opportunity to tell a much larger, more complicated story, I think.
You do get that opportunity, but at the same time, you need to work out a lot of little endings for each book.
Right, because they have to be satisfied on each individual book, but they also have to be satisfied in the overarching story between all the different novels. I hear you.
That's exactly. You're not allowed to just chop one great big book up into three.
Right. Now, I've noticed that I've only been able to see your books on Amazon.com. Are you self-publishing or are you using a publisher? We're so close, folks. Hold on. Let's see if we can get them back. We'll restart at that question. And
back up and running. Yes.
Yep.
I think I took a screenshot of that one. I got you in a perfect frame.
Oh, did you?
Yes. You do look like you're swearing, but
I was quietly swearing. Like the live audience who's watching, that they can see me swearing. But the last question I asked was publishing. How are you publishing your novels, and why did you choose to go that route?
I wasn't originally publishing them. I was just releasing it free online, just writing it and posting it there. And it just kind of grew from there. What I wanted to do was to get my books, I'll go from the start. They were originally viewed as fan fiction. Back then, it was just fan fiction. It wasn't, even though it was an original story, that's just how the general public, decide to refer to it. And I wanted to make it more commonly known as an original story, an original work. And when I was trying to come up with ways to do that, one of the ways was to publish it. And if I publish it, therefore it's technically not fan fiction. Yeah, the idea was to take it away from fiction, to publish it. That way it was widely recognized as being an original story, not just fan fiction.
Perfect. So why did you choose to go with an Amazon publisher instead of a traditional publisher or even like Inkshare?
I tried to do with a traditional publisher originally, but especially the very first volume before it got edited, my editing was terrible.
Oh.
I went over it twice, 3 times myself, and I thought it was perfect, but the comments came in and they pointed out that it was far from it.
That's the thing. Good beta readers.
But back then, I was when I first started, I'd get 6 to 10 views a day. I mean, it was next to nothing. So having someone to test read it was a bit of a stretch.
Well, I think you've worked out. There are plenty of fans now who would be more than willing to get a sneak peek at your story in exchange for editing tips.
Yes, exactly right.
Okay, so you walk me through a little bit about the Amazon process. Like, how does that work for you?
The Amazon process, well, it all begins once I've finished writing my book. There's a lot of steps before it even comes to Amazon. I have to compile it into the book. I have to build the metadata. I purchase and assign an ISBN to the book because that's technically what we're supposed to do to be able to sell it.
Right.
Then we have, format it, get it in the EPUB format. Then I get on Amazon and I can upload each and every piece of it. With the cover art, I end up doing that myself for End Online. Chronicles of the Eternal, thankfully, I had the resources to employ someone else to help me with it, which was a massive relief for me. Plus, the quality just shot through the roof. And then after that, I fill out all the Amazon information, choose categories, choose the keywords to search it for, and then just press publish and wait 12 to 24 hours, and voila, it appears on the internet.
Wow, that's beautiful. That seems a lot easier than some other methods. Would you recommend like going the self-publishing route with Amazon for other authors?
Well, Amazon is definitely one of the easiest, I reckon. There are a lot of other ways that people can do it. There's Smashwords. I don't like them, to be honest, but that's a personal opinion. There's a couple other ones. iTunes. I hate publishing with iTunes because they are just impossible. You have to do it with a Macintosh computer, and your book has to be a specific version of the format. Otherwise, it just will not accept it. I spent 20 to 30 hours to get the first book published on iTunes bookstore. And since then, I actually only got 1 sale. So when it comes to effort over...
Yeah, that seems a little weird to be such a huge pain in the butt. If they want your works, do you think they would make it easy as possible? I think Amazon has kind of found that niche. It's a little technically complicated, but it's not so complicated that it pushes out any new authors, especially with like the Kindle Unlimited program. I think that they want as many stories and authors as they can get.
Oh, indeed. They want to keep adding to it. And the Kindle Unlimited program is fantastic, especially for authors who are new. It gives them a chance for people to read their books when it's not well known, because the readers aren't paying for it, so they're more inclined to read it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the same way. If I'm paying even 99 cents per book, I'm a lot less likely to read it than if I'm in my mind. It feels free because I paid 10, 12
you paid the monthly fee, but the book itself looks free. So
yeah, because you just press a button and nothing extra is charged you. So I hear you. I kind of love that about the Kindle Unlimited kind of thing. Now, when it comes to marketing your books, do you do anything special in particular to get the word out about your story? Because like I have to say, your stories often come up in searches for lit RPG as one of the top novels.
I actually do next to no advertising, believe it or not. I did originally when it was new because you have to say it when it's new, but I've said it several times. I am vehemently against self-advertising. I just cannot stand to do it. I mean, if everyone else does it, I'm more than happy for them to do it. I have no complaints, but I can't bring myself to do it. So all I do is I post the chapters, and I have a page on my blog just saying to support me, in which you can donate money, you can purchase a book, or I recommend if you don't have money, maybe just tell a friend about it.
Yeah, because I think
that's just as
yeah,
valuable.
yeah, a lot of your stuff just comes online for free, right? You see, you publish it online while you're working on it, and then when you have enough for a book, you collect together and you send it to Amazon for people who want to publish it through ebooks or whatnot. So I love your model of the work speaking for itself instead of having to kind of show for it and kind of self promote. Not that there's anything wrong with that again, but
Yeah,
I like your idea of the work speaks for itself. It'll find its audience or it won't.
yeah, that's exactly how it worked.
Absolutely perfect. And I love all your stuff. I think that's most of our regular questions that we have for you. We're gonna hit a few fan questions for you, and then after that, that'll kind of be the end of the interview. But some of our fan questions, we begin with F Domino. They've asked, when will the next End Online book come out?
The next book, it's really hard to tell because it comes down to writing, how fast I write, and the editors. Once all that's done, it's actually not a long process. It only takes me 2 days once I've gotten everything ready. But from today, I can only say it's going to be late next month, end of next month, maybe the start of the following. So we're looking at, it's May currently, isn't it?
For a few more days, I think it is.
May. January, March, April, May. So end of June, start of July. That's what I'm hoping for.
Okay, that's a pretty good estimate. You want to give us any sneak peeks about what happens to Lost in the game?
I can't really do a great deal of sneak peeks because I haven't planned it yet. I do chapter by chapter.
Okay, perfect. I know they're heading to the kind of the beast territories. I really liked the last few parts of the fifth book of N Online. It was I like that you introduced some realm versus realm kind of combat and that system in addition to like the gladiatorial stuff from the previous books. I think it's interesting that you've also opened up the world to I think 6 other continents with different races that you can have opportunities to expand your story in. I like that.
That was the original plan. I wanted to have it as more adventure-wise, as in there's a lot of areas to explore. That was where the 6 realms, new realms came in. It's just instead of keeping in that small area of the original continent, we can then venture out to see all these different realms and these different races.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that allows a lot of good story opportunity. Now, our next question comes from B. Perry. How has releasing the books via web serial impacted their creation?
Well, if anything, it's been the advertising for the book originally. If I just wrote the book and published it on Amazon, then I can't imagine myself having anywhere near the amount of readers that I currently do. Also, it impacts me is in when you're writing the web serial, you get a lot of feedback from the readers as you go along. And whilst it doesn't affect the story, it can help you focus on some points that maybe you let slip.
Oh yeah, like some inconsistencies within the story and be like, oh, remember 2 chapters ago you said this, you forgot about this kind of thing.
There is that, and there's also they ask questions about what happens here and what's going to happen with that point. And you can think about it and you're like, you know what, I have a pretty good idea to write about that.
Oh, perfect. So their comments actually help your stream of thought writing process a little.
They do. They help me focus on some areas that I might miss otherwise.
Awesome. Let's see. Next question. Why did you choose to write in the light RPG style?
Well, I've just been a massive fan of the genre, and it's something that I am knowledgeable about.
Perfect answer. Right, what you know. Next one is actually a comment. Outspan Foster says hello.
Yes, hello. It's been a while. I've seen your comments around.
Perfect. Let's see. Next one. B2. Have you ever come close to writing yourself into a corner? And are there any elements of your story you regret not expanding upon?
Um, if I was to rewrite this story, I reckon there'd be a lot I would expand upon. I think every author is the same in that sense, as in there is always room for improvement. Writing myself into a corner, I think when I had Verdi, or Verdi, however you want to pronounce it, have the memory loss, that was a bit of a corner that I wrote myself into at the time. There's a lot of negative feedback from that, but I did at the same time. I knew it was going to be negative, but it was something that I felt had to be done. So I kind of had to force myself through that corner and into the next room.
Well, every story needs conflict. So I can hear what you're saying. I was a little surprised when she lost her memory myself. I'm like, wait, so everything that's happened before where she doesn't remember and the relationship just kind of disappears, but it leads to a very interesting introduction of outside influences happening in the game world. Her father, the corporation. It kind of leads into a larger picture of what's the AI doing? How's the corporation going to come back from it? How are they going to influence things? And I saw where it led to.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. But I got myself into the corner when I created the situation, but at the same time, it allowed me to push through to all these new, different scenarios and a wider world.
Yeah, so good job on that. Next question from M. Stafford. Why do you use chess pieces to categorize all of Zibril's children? And will we ever meet Zibril?
Well, I'm not going to go too much into spoilers. The chess pieces, it was, rather than being chess pieces, I more thought of royalty along the way. So that was it. Will we meet Zibril? I think if it's going to come up in the story, it will. So just imagine it will and hope for it.
Okay.
It could or it could not.
Cross my fingers. We'll see the main AI orchestrating everything. I like your idea of royalty or even like godhoods with like the main god, and then you have a bunch of sub gods with their own individual characteristics and powers. I like that kind of, but rather than chess pieces. Okay. Next question. Oh, that's me. I have one personal question. End Online and Chronicles of the Eternal, they feel like very different novels. In your planning stages, was it different for you to plan for Chronicles of the Eternal rather than End Online?
Not really. It was a little bit more refined. Chapters were shorter, which allowed me to put a little more detail into each one. But that's really all it was just the chapter length. That was the only real difference in the planning.
Perfect. And you kind of switch genres a little bit between Chronicles of the Eternal and End Online. End Online is very much almost a pure fantasy with game elements, of course. Not until like book 5 do you introduce like guns, and even that seems like a special ability for like one particular character. But within Chronicles of the Eternal, very upfront, you almost make it I don't want to say steampunk, but it's you.
It was originally planned to be steampunk.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
Perfect. So
that's
why
actually the Amazon genre, steampunk.
Okay, perfect. So that's nice. So you did kind of switch genres a little bit to a little more technology. Why did you make that decision?
It was just trying to do something different. When I originally first planned Chronicles of the Eternal, which would be nearly a year ago, is when I first thought of it. It was based on, ironically, an NPC who grew to be a soul. It wasn't the game was the world, but it was in a game world. And one day, this NPC who governed a store, he walked outside and he just looked at the sky and he thought, I want something more. And that was how Regal originally started. Then after we had the plan for the character, I started to think of a genre to start writing in. And steampunk was always been a fan of mine. I've always liked it. And I thought, maybe I can have a guns and magic sort of book. I can write that. It's new, it's fresh. People should enjoy it if I do it right. And that's just how it came to be, to write in steampunk.
Perfect.
Something new.
You did it right because I enjoyed it. I'll tell you that much. Are we going to see like more steampunk influences in Chronicles of the Eternal, like dirigibles, steam guns, or anything like that?
Well, we're going to have airships, and I don't mean as in floating pirate ships. I mean the old school steampunk airships with the balloons. Heisenberg.
Okay. Perfect. So that answers my personal fan questions. I appreciate you talking to me today. Was there anything else you wanted to tell the fans or talk about before we kind of end the interview?
That's really all it is. All I would just like to say to the fans is thank you for supporting my work, and I hope that you'll continue to like it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. Wolfin. You can catch all D. Wolfin's work, and of course, Amazon. His website's going to be endonline.wordpress.com. You can also catch him on Twitter as Drunken Wolfin. We'll have links for all his books, all the places you can reach him at in the show notes for this interview. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening. And for Geek Minds Podcast, I'm Ramon Mejia.